Earlier this year, I made a video about why Biggs Darklighter is so important to Star Wars, and it was universally loved. What the hell? 0.5% of you are dead to me. That video was meant to be the first in a series celebrating the less talked about side of Star Wars, the glupshidos, the characters that don't get enough of the spotlight. My goal is to make an argument for why and how even the smallest character can have a huge impact on the Star Wars universe and fandom. And today I'm talking about Jaxxon T. Tumparaki. Yeah, the Green Rabbit Man. I think Jaxxon is a symbol that Star Wars fans should look to. He is genuinely a symbol of hope during times where the fandom can seem intensely divided. Right now, there's a lot of anger online surrounding The Acolyte. Before that, it was the sequels. Before that, it was the Clone Wars. Before that, it was the prequels. Before that, it was the Ewoks. Before that, it was the holiday special. And before that, there was Jaxxon. He made his debut in the classic Marvel Star Wars comics in November of 1977 in the 8th issue, only months after the first movie came out. He was a mercenary that joined Han Solo on a Seven Samurai-style adventure, so step aside The Mandalorian and the Clone Wars, Jaxxon did it first. He only appeared in 4 total issues before being written out of the comic because, according to writer Roy Thomas, George Lucas hated the character. Writer Archie Goodwin was apparently told by Lucasfilm to never use the Green Bunny again after including Jaxxon in issue 16. Most fans seem to agree that the classic Marvel Star Wars comics were too silly. An article in Star Wars Insider 83 ranked Jaxxon's introduction as one of the goofiest moments in the entire expanded universe. Jaxxon's existence beat out the time droid Princess Leia assassinated Trioculus, the three-eyed possible mutant son of Palpatine, by shooting lasers out of her eyes at their own wedding. Not to mention in the exact same comic issue that introduces Jaxxon, we also meet a carbon copy of Luke Skywalker and the Star Wars version of Don Quixote, Don Juan Quixote. Jaxxon isn't even the goofiest character in that group. By the way, I'm not throwing shade at Don Juan, I actually kind of love him. Even official sources have occasionally taken digs at Jaxxon. The Clone Wars episode A Sunny Day in the Void included the skeleton of what appears to be Jaxxon. Fun fact, George Lucas has called that episode his favorite of the entire Clone Wars series. Maybe this is why. When Marvel rebooted their Star Wars line in 2015, one of the variant covers for their very first issue was a parody of the Uncle Buck poster, where the entire family is trying to keep Uncle Buck from coming inside. This time, all of the original trilogy characters are trying to keep Jaxxon out, as if he's not welcome to come back into the universe. Look, I don't have strong personal feelings for Jaxxon. I'm actually in the middle of reading the classic Marvel comics right now, and yeah, Jaxxon is kind of a lot. But now that we've covered all the resistance to the Green Bunny, we have to talk about the people that welcomed him with open arms. Wikipedia makes note of several authors that kept their personal love for Jaxxon alive, including Jeff Grubb, Joseph Bongiorno, Abel Pena, and Pablo Hidalgo. But the reason I wanted to make this video is because of Cavan Scott. If you've never seen any of my interviews before, I love asking people who their favorite side or background characters are. Who do people love the same way I love Biggs, and why? And Cavan's answer is one of my favorite answers I've ever heard, and I'll just let you hear it for yourselves.
What is it about Jaxxon that draws you to him?
He was my beginning of Star Wars. So before I saw any of the films, my first film I saw in cinema was Empire. I missed Star Wars. I got the Star Wars Weekly Marvel comic, which we had over here in the UK. And the first ever issue I picked up was Jaxxon's introduction. And that was what got me into Star Wars. Obviously, he was only in a few issues, but I reread those issues so much that he became, as important as any member of the team, to the point that when I finally sat and watched Empire in the cinema, I was really upset that he wasn't there. I did think when the bounty hunters appeared, that perhaps he's gone bounty hunter now. But yeah, I was half expecting Jaxxon to turn up at any moment, and he never did.
I cannot tell you how much I love that answer, because it illustrates something that has always been true to me. Every character in Star Wars is somebody's favorite. The same goes for ships or planets or creatures or literally anything in the universe. There might be this character or show or whatever that's popular to hate on in the moment, but someone is out there absolutely obsessed with that thing. I love Cavan's story that Jaxxon was so integral to his view of Star Wars that he was upset upset that there wasn't a green bunny hanging out with Boba Fett in The Empire Strikes Back. But here's what we need to remember about those Star Wars things that are hated on in the moment: they always come back around. Sure, there are still people that will make their tired Jar Jar jokes 25 years later, but at the screening I went to earlier this year, nothing but cheers for him. Cheers for the whole movie, for that matter. The prequels are widely celebrated now. People love the Ewoks now. The cycle always repeats. I will say that the holiday special is a bit of an exception to that. I wouldn't call it celebrated, but it is widely accepted. I've seen it several times and it's always a rough watch. But I also have a Life Day globe and one of those red robes, and the Star Wars fandom as a whole knows what Life Day is and they have fun with it. Even the weirdest, goofiest things in the Star Wars universe become fun, Jaxxon included. I actually don't think he's as goofy as his reputation would let on and didn't deserve all the hate he got, but I have seen a significant change in the acceptance of his character. When it comes to Star Wars, merchandise is always a good indicator of a character's appreciation, and Jaxxon has a shocking amount of merch. He's got a 6-inch Black Series action figure, and Biggs doesn't, by the way. You can get statues of him. He was featured as a pin and on a shirt at Star Wars Celebration London, and I think a lot of his resurgence comes down to Cavan Scott. He wrote Jaxxon back into Star Wars comics in the 2018 Star Wars Adventures annual issue. He's appeared in a lot of issues of Star Wars Adventures and hyperspace stories, keeping the love for Jaxxon alive, and Cavan got to be the one to add Jaxxon into the background of The Empire Strikes Back just like he always wanted. The Green Bunny made his way to Cloud City in the short story Fake It Till You Make It in The Empire Strikes Back from a certain point of view.
Which is one of the reasons that I think I can now die a happy man that I have put Jaxxon in Empire Strikes Back in from a certain point of view. So, you know, that's a little letter to my, 8-year-old or whatever it was self, just going, he's there, you just can't see him yet. I think with Star Wars, more than any of the fandoms I've been involved with or I've loved, I've probably kept my love of the goofy and the weird pretty much throughout. But I knew his time would come. I just didn't expect it would be through me. That was the shock in all this.
I love that Cavan Scott got to bring Jaxxon back into Star Wars despite all the pushback and notoriety the character received. It's not like he's a major part of the current era of Star Wars, but he's already been in more stories than he ever was in Legends, and I never see anyone complaining about him now. To me, Jaxxon is a great reminder of an important truth in the Star Wars fandom. A character or a movie or show might not be your favorite, but it is someone's favorite. And he's a reminder that we all come into Star Wars in different ways. Cavan Scott fell in love with Star Wars because of Jaxxon. Decades later, he wound up writing one of my favorite, most gut-wrenching Star Wars novels, The Rising Storm. So if Jaxxon didn't exist, that book might not exist. It's a very real possibility that a young person may have just fallen in love with Basil and the Acolyte, which could then inspire them to create something amazing down the line, Star Wars or not. That's always been one of the best things about Star Wars, the way it moves us to create YouTube videos or fan films, fan fiction, fan art, droids, the list goes on. Every story and every character has the potential to inspire us, even Jaxxon. And that's why I think Jaxxon is great and important to Star Wars. Hopefully I'll find time to do another entry in this series more often than every 6 months. Let me know what character or random Star Wars thing I should celebrate in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.